Hey guys, we are back to Build Stuff 2020 with another speaker to talk to, and it's Abel Wang this time. Hello, wave to the camera as we always do. This is it. We're gonna talk about a lot of interesting stuff because Abel has a huge history and a lot of interesting stuff to share, I guess. But first, I want to ask you to give us a sneak peek about your talk that you had yesterday. So you
Oh,
talked about
so
real world DevOps, and if somebody missed it, have another note on that. Could you please tell us what did you talk about?
well, you definitely want to see this talk because what I talk about is real world DevOps, right? Because usually I give these DevOps talks and I have a really fancy hello world demonstration and it's flashy and it's rainbows and unicorns, but that's not what the real world is like at all. So what I wanted to do was give a talk and really dive in deep and show just how powerful our DevOps pipelines can truly be and what they can do in the real world.
You should explain also why do you have like seven guitars behind you? I'm just watching right now and just count it down. So
Yeah,
what's going on?
I might even have some more in my closet. Well, back in the day when I was growing up, I wanted to be a rock star. I didn't want to do anything with computers or anything like that. And in my mind, I was 100% sure I was going to be a rock star.
I mean,
And
you are in the rockstar spotlight.
I am. So this is like a dream come true. But I was kind of surprised when the older that I got that I was not making a lot of money being a rock star. In fact, I was making almost no money at all. So I finally decided maybe I should get a real job.
Okay, so is it that how your story starts that leads you to Build Stuff conference? Like how did you become who you are today?
Well, I grew up in a very Chinese family, so we were all about classical music. So I was by the time I was like, I think 4 or 5, I was playing violin. Everything was about math and homework and stuff like that. But what I really wanted to do was to be a rock star, right? So as soon as I could, I think this was around high school, I kicked my violin to the curb, even though I was really good at that too. Um, and I just jumped in, grabbed the guitar. I wanted to impress girls. And at that
And just
time, girls were
violin
not
didn't do it.
it did not do it as much as when I picked up my guitar and grew my hair out long. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But like I said, it was around a little bit after college. I had my son, and at that point in time, I realized I really needed to get a job that paid a lot more than my failed rock and roll career.
So you started doing. How did you
So,
join
oh,
Microsoft?
so my mom was a computer science professor. So I
Well,
grew up
that
around.
explains a lot.
Yeah, I grew up around computers my entire life, and I learned programming pretty early on. So when I finally decided rock and roll was not lucrative enough for me, I went back to school and got my computer science degree. Actually, I finished up my computer science degree because the first time I was in college, I was having a little too much fun, and I flunked out of school. They actually kicked me out of the university. So I had to go back the second time. I got my degree, and I ended up at Compaq Computers, which I don't even think exists anymore. But if you're old like me, you'll remember Compaq Computers. And from there, I changed a whole bunch of jobs. I got a whole bunch of different programming jobs. I even founded my own company, my own software company. This was during the dot-com boom timeframe, so that was a lot of fun. And I bought and sold my company. So then I thought, oh, I'm going to be a billionaire and I'll never have to work again. And yeah, that didn't happen either. so so I realized I had to come back and work, but this time I did have a little bit of money, so I didn't have to grab a job immediately. And my passion at that point was, I always write code, but my passion was I wanted to figure out why some groups that was with, the project succeeded, but most of the projects I were on, they failed, right? And by failed, I mean we would go over time, over budget. By the time we'd have an end product, there were too many bugs, or we'd give the end product to the user and they'd be like, yeah, that's not quite what we want, right? So, but there were every now and then I'd be on a team where we would be phenomenally successful. And at first, I wanted to say, well, it's because of the programmers, right? On the successful team, they were great programmers. On the bad teams, well, clearly they were just awful programmers. But that wasn't true because in our industry, it's much smaller than you would think. And most of the teams that I were on, there were common or core people that were still there, right? So there were shared people. So what I figured out was it's the process that makes all the difference, right? Waterfall versus agile. And of course, at the time that I was looking at this, agile was a thing, but it was still barely getting off the ground, right? And so I really started studying agile and started running teams that way. And I joined a small consulting firm where we helped people go from waterfall to agile. We would help them make that transformation. So that was a pretty easy transition to go from there to DevOps, right? Because we finally got agile down. People could start building software, the right software with not too many bugs, and sprint after sprint, they could deliver the software. But now we were having trouble getting that software into production. Right, so that kind of led me into DevOps and into Microsoft as well.
Such a long story. I don't even have any comments left. Okay, but what I want to know, I want to know more about the fun part of your life right now because
Okay.
we all have the serious talks and serious speeches and everything, all the sessions during build stuff. It's everything is fun, everything is rock on, but still, it's like it's serious stuff, serious topics. And I want to know more about your personal life, which is also kind of sad because I know for personal life we talked before the call. You still like writing code for your as your hobby.
That's
What
yeah,
is
that's what
going
I
on?
do for fun. When I have fun, that's what I do is I write code. I always tell this story, right? When I come home from Microsoft, back when I still had to go into the office, I'd spend all day writing code, right? And when I got home, I'd be exhausted. I would say hi to my wife. We would cook dinner together. We'd play with the dog, and then to relax, we'd sit down. We'd watch some TV, and she'd pick the show. And as we were watching, I would reach into my laptop and my bag, pull out my laptop, and then I'd start writing more code because that's just what I love to do, right? So that's to me, writing code is it's a fun challenge. And what I really like about it, it's a challenge, but you have all these constraints around you, right? It's like, okay, solve this problem, but you have to do it with all of these constraints. So you have a lot of creativity, but your creativity and your constraints and that type of stuff just makes me happy.
I can definitely feel what you're saying. I have the same kind of emotion, the same kind of feeling about my field of expertise. I work with video directing, and
Yeah,
I literally have the same thing when I edit videos. The same feeling, like it's a job. But
yeah.
when what sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and just go to edit some kind of video of my own because I just like the puzzle, you know.
Yes, we're really lucky, right? We love what we do, and I am so lucky. I for the longest time I didn't want to be a programmer, right? Because from very young, my mom was just like, you are going to write code, and of course, as a rebellious child, I was like, no, I don't want to write code. But when I finally went back to school the second time and started writing code, it really ticked all the boxes that would make me happy, right? So I'm extremely lucky to be in this field.
And tell me, please, about the Great Wall Marathon. What's up
Oh,
with you and that?
so I am a runner as well. I run. I wasn't always a runner. For most of my life, I've done nothing physical. But when I was around, because I would sit
Except
and
being a
play.
rock star, that takes a lot of, you know, power.
It does, but that took a lot of practice. But it wasn't my cardio wasn't very good, right?
Yeah.
But when I was around maybe around 30 or so, 30 or 40, I started getting all sorts of weird health problems like high blood pressure, right? I was out of shape,
Why
so
would
I
that ever
start
happen?
right. So I started running for exercise and I hated it, right? I remember the first time I ran, I thought my eyeballs were going to explode out of my face. It was awful. It was the most worst feeling in the world. But I kind of kept at it. And one day I realized, wait, I miss running if I don't, right? 'Cause when I'm running, you first start, I'm always like, oh, I hate this. I hate this. Even today. But when I don't run, I realize I missed it. So then I started running more and more and more. And So I run half marathons, and I run marathons, but I really, really want to run a marathon on top of the Great Wall of China because how cool would that be, right?
Epic. That would be a rockstar move. Okay, before we end this interview, we have a question from Caro. She says, "What was the most fun pet project you have done in your free time?"
Oh, well, usually my free projects are I do coding projects for my wife a lot. So my wife is a writer. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and so she needs a website, and she needs like e-commerce on it, and she needs all these features. And it seems that list just keeps on growing and growing and growing. So most of the stuff that I do is with her and whatever she needs. But the cool part is I use that as a way to play with new technologies, right? So I remember when containers started becoming a big thing, I was like, well, clearly I just need to containerize absolutely everything, right? And then it's like, oh, I wanted to learn Vue, right? Sure, let's learn Vue. So I changed her website to use Vue. Some other things that I did. Well, of course, I first started out using ASP.NET, like old school ASP.NET. Right, and then we started doing MVC, and then eventually I started doing .NET Core as well. Um, a friend of mine was telling me you need to learn more about Python. So there's some microservices. Oh yeah, I broke her site apart into microservices as well. Right. So it's like my playground to learn whatever new technologies that I want to learn.
Nice. I guess audience got bigger answer than they expected. Okay, Abel, thank you very much. We have to finish now. We have to talk with Randy just in a half a minute. So say bye bye. Thank you very much for the talk. It was fun and it was rock on.
Thank you.